I'm continuing that project that I talked about on the list, and I have used P2P line to place in around this inner part of this wedding ring block so that I can see the outline. Now I'm going to place a pattern in there, and these blocks are not very squarely oriented, so I'm going to just try and as best I can figure out the basic center of this block and place a pattern in that. I had started working on this before I thought about the fact that they already had some of these quilted in there by hand, and there's a lot of stitching in these little skirt things around this melon area, and this is very difficult and to go in and stitch in some of the areas that they did not stitch anything in. There's not anything here because they hand stitched this. See this area, you can see where I had to do a lot of stitching because they didn't fill anything in there. Had I noticed before I started this that they had quilted in some areas a pattern very similar to this in some of these areas. There's one in this row I'm working on now. It's right there. It's very similar to this, and this is a pattern that is in the free patterns that came with the Statler Stitcher. It's a flower block, but I didn't notice that, and there's no way I'm going to take any of this out. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. This will just have to be okay as far as I'm concerned. And what I'm going to do here is place a pattern in this. Go to repeat patterns, and this flower block is what I'm going to use. I've already changed my pattern location to center because I'm going to have quite a few of these to deal with. So I can just click OK, and it'll place that pattern in there. Then I will select it, and I'll move it around and center it as best that I can. It looks like it needs to go down a little bit. I'll hold down the Control key and use the down arrow key, and I will just move that to where it looks. And now that looks good there. I think that'll be fine. Another thing I'm going to do is select all of this, toggle it as sewn, but I'm going to leave it in there. So that's what I need to do. The reason that these are all actually patterns, they're not boundaries, they're patterns. And I decided to do it this way because when I relocate, see, everything would be shifted. If they were boundaries, they would not be shifted with everything on the screen. So I'm going to stitch this, and then we'll see what I'm going to do next. That quilted out very well, and I need to go and start dealing with some of these melons. And the only thing I can do here, or will do, is I'm going to place this little pattern that I modified. You see, I have this one is like a vertical, and I can place that in there by simply placing my foot in the, try to get it as close to the center of that melon as possible. Then I'll go to repeat patterns, click yes, and place it in there. Then I may do some adjusting of it. It's just a matter of getting it located as best I can. in the center. That doesn't look too bad right there. And I think I'll just quilt this out and see how this relates to this melon. Okay, what I did with this melons is originally I had this pattern on the screen here, and I placed it on the quilt and I adjusted it to fit in one of these melons. I made sure then that when I brought it down to this area that it was horizontal, so that it would work as a P2P pattern if I wanted it to. Then after I got it adjusted, I rotated it so that it was vertical, and I saved it as a CSQ. See, I saved this one as a CSQ, then I rotated it and saved it as a CSQ. That gives me a pattern to fit all of these vertical melons. Then this pattern fits all the horizontal melons. So that's how I accomplished that. What I do each time is I try to place this in the approximate center of this, and you can see this is a little slanted, so I'll have to adjust this pattern after I put it in place. I'll go get repeat patterns, click OK, and it's going to put the up. I should have selected the other pattern, so I'm going to Control Z, go get my other pattern and do this again. There, that's in. I'll have to do some adjusting to it, and one of the easy ways of doing it, I have the end anchors turned on. I can just use the end anchors and move this around like that. Okay, so you see that's how easy that is to do. Then I'll go and place it in another point here. This time I need my vertical. I'll go get that one. Repeat patterns. OK. And I think I'll place several of these in there. I keep switching back and forth between the horizontal and the vertical pattern, and just put them in place, and then I will adjust them after I get them all in there. Okay, this one I need the vertical, and I have it. Now all I have to do is go back and adjust these three to fit the way I want them to. And again, I'll just select it, get my end anchors, move it around a little bit. Okay, this end doesn't look too bad. Go and check each one. This one needs to be moved. Then I can stitch these three out. Sometimes it's difficult to select these patterns. Have too many things going on in a quilt group. This is what happens when you get your quilt group so congested that it's difficult to see how to adjust or to select something. And I'm doing this just as a demo. Normally I probably wouldn't have all of these things in one quilt group, and I may here shortly make another quilt group and work from the next row in a different quilt group. Okay, here I'm going to place this flower block in there. And I'll be able to quilt all of this. And I need to kind of move that a little bit. I'm holding down the control key. That takes away the handles, and I can see a little better. I think that's fair. And just click off somewhere. Now I can stitch out all of these, the 4 melons and the center block. Okay, these are all quilted out, and then I'll have to go and put melons in these other places and quilt this one block here. That block is already quilted, and then just finish all the way across to the end, and that'll finish this row. Okay, since I have the vertical pattern for the melons selected, I'm going to place all of the vertical patterns in place and then come back and place the horizontal ones in. That'll just make it a little easier. I won't have to shift back and forth between the patterns. You have the machine sitting in the approximate center of this block. Let's get the edge-to-edge icon, place it, and I'm going to go to the next one and do this again. Just select, go over using my upper right button to go over to the edge-to-edge icon, repeat patterns edge-to-edge icon, and right click the lower right to select it, then right click OK to place it. Move to the next one. Now I'm going to move the center, upper center, move down to the horizontal, and do the same thing. Just keep using the repeat patterns icon. Okay, I have all those in place, and I think I have one place where I need to, no, I thought I needed to get rid of a pattern here. Now all I have to do now is go and adjust all of these. So I'll adjust them, then I'll quilt them out. I'm having a little trouble selecting this pattern, so here's a little trick. I can select this one. These horizontal ones seem to be pretty easy to select, and what I can do is I'll select this one and I'll use my less than key. See, now I can select that pattern. Then I can less than again and select that one. I use a less than here to select this pattern. I have no idea what that is. I need to delete that, whatever it is. Then go use the less than key. I'll move this. Use the less than key again. Move this. Once you can select a pattern, then you can kind of go backwards in the procedure and select the pattern that you want to select. So I think I pretty well have all these adjusted so that they'll quilt out okay. I'll use the greater than key here. And let's see, what can I select? Get this one, okay. Now I'll hit the less than and work on this pattern again. I don't like how that looks. It's probably going to be a little too close to the edge. Okay, I think I have everything adjusted the way I want it. I'll stitch these out. Then I can come back and put these patterns in place, or I could put them in place now by selecting this flower block and placing them where I want them to be. Okay, this pattern and this pattern have been sewn by hand, so I will toggle those as sewn even though I have them in place, just for a visual reference here. So everything is all set. I need to do some adjusting. All the patterns have been adjusted. Now all I need to do is just stitch everything out.